Well, hello everyone. In this video we are going to talk about the fundamental nature of reality and its oneness from purely abstract view and deduction. So in this video we are going to first represent the general model and then discuss its different aspects. The left side of the model discusses possibility, which is something between existence and non-existence. It is the essence of mathematics in ontology, and the right side discusses meaning, which is something between truth and falsehood. It is the essence of logic, which is in the epistemological realm. As you can see, possibility is about mathematical shapes and numbers, while meaning is about concepts and propositions. So oneness is neutral to ontology and epistemology. It's above both of them. It dominates both domains, and that's why we can see oneness as both a number, which is mathematical and ontological, or as a concept, which is logical and epistemological. So in this model, the middle column is neutral to ontology, which is the left side, or epistemology, which is the right side. For example, oneness, being, multiplicity, non-being, nothingness, these are completely neutral to ontology and epistemology and can be used equally in both domains. For example, consider being or isness. You can say truth is, existence is, possibility is, meaning is. This is or isness or being is a common feature between both ontology and epistemology, and that's true about all things in the middle column. So in this part of the video we're going to move from the middle side to the opposite directions, meaning to the top and the down. So if we do it to the left side and move from possibility to existence, that would be necessity, and if we move from possibility to non-existence, that would be impossibility. And that's the law of analyticity, which says something is either necessarily P or necessarily not P. Necessarily not P is the same as impossibility. So in the middle column, if we move from things to being or non-being, that would be the law of excluded middle. Something is P or not P. And in the right side of the model, if we move from meaning to truth and to falsehood, that would be the principle of bivalence, which posits that P is either true or false. P is a proposition or a meaningful proposition. That's what we do with the right side, moving from meaning to the opposite directions. So we saw that law of excluded middle was like a common factor or essence between analyticity and bivalence, because analyticity says to be either necessarily P or not P, so it has the to be or being as its common essence, and bivalence on the right side was to be either true or false, so it again had that to be verb. And in the middle side it says just to be either P or not P without anything additional, so it was the common essence. Now we are going to move from the opposite sides to the middle side, meaning from top and bottom to the middle part of the model. So if we do it on the left side, that would be contingency, from existence to possibility, and from non-existence to possibility. From existence to possibility would be possibly P, and from non-existence to possibility it would be possibly not P, which is being both possibly P and not P. This is called contingency. In the middle column it would be becoming, because becoming is is being and non-being at the same time, so being plus non-being equals becoming. In the right side that will be dialetheism, which means something is both true and false. We move from truth and falsehood towards meaning, from the opposite directions towards the middle side. So the synthetic nature of the dialetheism is obvious here. So we posited that being is something between multiplicity and oneness. But how can it seriously move us from multiplicity towards oneness, or from oneness towards multiplicity? Let's first analyze a top-down movement from oneness towards multiplicity. This is also known as emanation in ontology. But if you want to put it epistemologically, in this model, being will be responsible for emanating multiple predicates from a single subject. For example, consider this proposition: reality is existent, true, good, or whatever. In this model, this isness, or the to be verb, or being, is responsible for emanating multiple predicates from a single subject. It's also known as one is all. In this case, one is the source of everything. It's the ontological source of everything. It's a persistent subject of varying predicates, or a principle behind various parameters, or a why-ness behind several how-nesses. So when a person is analytically identifying different tokens of a type or aspects of a being, that person is experiencing at least a level of this emanation. Intellectuals with analytic inclinations like Noam Chomsky have focused on this top-down relations in syntactic structures. So now the question is, what is the other possibility for being? What if multiplicity comes before oneness? In this case, all is one and united under the goal of oneness. In other words, oneness is the goal. So when a person is putting multiple things into a category, he is experiencing at least a level of this unity. Consider this proposition: existence, truth, etc. are real. This are, or to be verb, or being, is responsible for uniting multiple subjects under a single predicate. It's also known as all is one. That's why we call oneness as the goal in this model. Intellectuals with synthetic inclinations like Jordan Peterson have focused on this bottom-up relation. So in here we're going to exactly show how all is one. If this being or isness is made simple and pure, it will get closer to oneness. But if we contaminate being by non-being, it will become multiple. In other words, oneness is the ground of being. In the following, we are going to show why pure being, which is mutual positivity or isness or sameness, depends on oneness as opposed to no one, by balancing all possible and meaningful relations between being and non-being in both math, which is plus and minus, and logic, which is positivity and negativity. For example, consider is multiplied by is equals is. This means that, for example, when you say it is the case that he is yellow, it means that he is yellow. So these two is made another is. But when you say it is not the case that he is yellow, this is not multiplied by that is made a negative conclusion, which is not yellow. And if we follow all of these possible and meaningful relations, they will ultimately lead to one positivity or being or isness, which means all is one. Well, we can do the same thing in the opposite direction by division. Previously we made multiplicity united into oneness by infinite density, but now we are going to emanate from oneness towards multiplicity by infinite division. And here is the representation, which means one is all. In other words, one emanates everything. It is the source of everything. So let us summarize what we said so far in a simple argumentative form. Because according to Occam's razor, the best philosophical explanation is the simplest one, especially when our own topic is about oneness. So if we consider premise 1 of our argument, it says that everything is one by itself, which is like the law of identity. Consider a physical thing, it's one by itself, like time, energy, matter. It has one identity. Or consider a mental thing, like mind, emotion, or thinking. This has one identity. Premise 2: everything is not one with others. So a mental and a physical are two things, they're not one with others. So premise 1: everything is one by itself. Premise 2: everything is not one with others, which is law of non-contradiction. When the moment you say other, it means it has an is not or non-being in it, which is that other thing is not this thing anymore. It's a collection or multiplicity. And the conclusion is that therefore there is one with no others beyond everything, or one is not with others. This one with no others is the same as our what we mentioned as oneness, or divine reality behind everything. As you can see, oneness is the same as one with no others, or the one, which is at least like number one. This monotheistic argument is like a Hegelian dialectic in which we are going to go over 5 approaches to the reality of oneness from a metaphysical perspective. The first of which is the dualistic reality, the second is monistic reality, the third one is idealistic reality, the fourth one is realistic reality, and the fifth one is the balanced reality. So we are going to show how we can reach this oneness from each of these philosophical positions, and why the fifth one is the most complete approach to the reality of oneness. So the first model that we are going to analyze is the dualistic model of reality. In this model we can move from genus pluralism towards genus monism. A balanced version of dualistic model of reality is reconcilable with monism, but an unbalanced and excessive version of dualistic model of reality is not reconcilable with monism. So in this model, the balanced version would suggest that there are two major aspects of reality. One is ontological, which is existence, and the other is epistemological, which is truth. So reality is like a coin whose one side is the ontological existence and the other side is epistemological truth. Epistemology is basically the foundation of soft sciences like logic, cognitive science, psychology, and the ontology is the foundation of natural sciences like physics, math, and all other things. So the unbalanced version of dualism would suggest that these two are parallel and always like separate aspects of reality that cannot interact or be reconciled with each other. So in order to counterbalance an unbalanced version of the dualistic model of reality, we are going to present an argument for that. But before the argument, there is a fallacy known as quantifier shift fallacy, which suggests that just because ontology has one highest type and epistemology has one highest type, it does not mean that there is one highest type for both of them, or just because one student has one teacher and another student has one teacher, it does not mean that there is one teacher for both of them. However, this fallacy is not true about a greatest thing. And as we know, there is one being or thing on top of the ontological hierarchy known as the existence, and there is one being on top of the epistemological hierarchy known as the truth. So we can use the term being or thing for both ontology, which is the study of existence and objects, and for epistemology, which is the existence, which is the realm of facts, concepts, propositions, knowledge. So this ability of thing or being to be used equally in both ontological realm and epistemological realm means that they can actually be united. So premise 2 posits that we intuitively know that existence is the greatest thing. We also intuitively know that truth is the greatest thing. Premise 3 suggests that but a greatest thing by definition must encompass everything, which means that truth and existence encompass each other. Therefore, truth and existence converge in a single oneness, not as separate maxima, but as dual aspects of one ultimate reality. And this argument shows that if truth is the greatest thing and existence is the greatest thing, they are all actually the same, because the greatest thing occupies everything and does not let anything beside it. So the second metaphysical model for the fundamental nature of reality is the monistic model. We can have different kinds of monisms, like substance monism, which itself has neutral and property monism, existence monism, and priority monism. So substance monism basically suggests that there is one fundamental reality. That fundamental reality can be neutral to the physical and the mental worlds, or it can be just one fundamentally physical reality, or one fundamentally mental reality. If we say that that fundamental reality is neutral to both the physical and the mental, that would be neutral monism, neutral substance monism. But if we say that it is totally physical fundamental reality, that would be a kind of property monism. Or if we say that it's a totally mental fundamental reality, that would be another kind of property monism. And existence monism suggests that every particular thing is one with each other without regarding their like fundamental oneness. It suggests that the appearance of multiplicity is just a delusion, and everything is just one with each other, even at the particular level of each concrete object. But priority monism suggests that there might be multiplicity at the concrete level of particulars, but there is a fundamental oneness behind all these multiplicity. So the oneness in priority monism is fundamental or high or transcendent. So this is the basic representation for monism. It mostly focuses on the oneness of reality, on the horizontal oneness of reality. It can the motivation for this monism is the centrality of isness or being, or the to be in everything. For example, consider this statement that Ali is my friend. The role of is in here is to horizontally unite Ali and my friend together. So equation or a mutual is between two things is responsible for forcing multiplicity into oneness by infinite density and intensity. So monism can have a balanced and an unbalanced version. I call the priority monism as the balanced version of monism, and existence monism as the unbalanced version of monism. What do I mean by balanced? I mean that the balanced version is reconcilable with the other models like dualistic model, but the unbalanced version is excessive and irreconcilable with the previous models. So the priority monism as the balanced version basically suggests that there exists X such that X is a basic concrete object, and any basic concrete object Y is identical to X. So it basically suggests that there is only one fundamental oneness, although there might be multiplicity at the apparent level, or at the level of particulars more specifically. While the unbalanced version, which is existence monism, suggests that every particular thing is one with each other, and it does not posit a fundamental oneness. So why I consider it as unbalanced? Because it ignores the transcendence or highness or fundamentality of that oneness. But the priority monism, which was balanced, is reconcilable with the previous model. For example, in the dualistic model, existence and truth can be replaced with X and Y in here as the priority monism. So the third model for the fundamental nature of reality is the idealistic model. Theories like idealism, logicism, mentalism have a tendency towards the epistemological aspect of reality. In other words, they focus on truth more than they focus on existence. An example of that would be the distinction between truth maker and truth bearer. Truth makers are the ontological entities such as objects, existence, ontics, etc., while truth bearers are the epistemological entities like propositions, facts, beliefs, etc. So they both share truth, even though truth maker is an ontological entity while truth bearer is an epistemological entity. They both share truth, which is an epistemological entity, but it is the highest epistemological entity. This simply means that a higher level of one side, in other words higher level of epistemology, which is truth, has dominated lower levels of both sides, which are truth bearers and truth makers. So that's why it has a tendency towards the epistemological aspect of reality. Another example of that would be Hegel's absolute idealism. Absolute idea has an epistemological nature, and idea has an epistemological nature. But why has it dominated both the object and the subject, or both ontology and epistemology? Because it's absolute, and going higher in one side equals dominating lower levels of both sides. So an argument for this would be something like that. Premise 1. Both mental and physical worlds are dependent on logic. For instance, we can use meaningful propositions to describe both mental and physical facts. And as you know, logic is fundamentally epistemological. Premise 2. Laws of logic are always fixed and stable. They do not change when switching between physical and mental worlds. Premise 3. Therefore, laws of logic are in fact describing one type of truth or one ultimate reality. So this was the balanced version of idealism. What would be an unbalanced version? That would be comparing lower levels of ontology with higher levels of epistemology to conclude that epistemology is somehow more basic or more important than ontology. An example of that would be a comparison between should be with being. For example, consider David Hume's ought is problem. Ought is about should, which is mostly about epistemology. Should be is about meaning and is about epistemology, while being is neutral to both ontology and epistemology. So being is in the middle column, should be or ought to is about right column. So it's a comparison between middle column and right column. It has a bias towards epistemology or the right column. But how about considering can be? Can be is about possibility, which is ontological. So being is not like the right thing to compare with should be or ought to be. The right counterpart for should be is can be in the ontological realm. Being is a shared essence between the both domains. Consider this. If C is can be, if CB is can be, and SB is should be, then being is a common factor between can be and should be. Can be is related to ontology, should be is related to epistemology, and be itself is a common essence between ontology and epistemology. It's a metaphysical entity. Things like entity, being, thing are totally neutral to subject and object, or epistemology and ontology. So the fourth model for the fundamental nature of reality is the realistic model. Theories like realism, mathematicism, physicalism, etc. have a tendency towards the ontological aspect of reality. In other words, they focus on existence more than they focus on truth. So they suggest that a higher level of one side, like existence in ontology, can dominate lower levels of both ontology and epistemology. This suggests a kind of property substance monism or a realistic monism. So an argument for this would be both mental and physical worlds are dependent on mathematics. For instance, we can use numbers and charts to describe both mental and physical properties. Mathematical properties are always fixed and stable. They do not change when switching between physical and mental worlds. Therefore, mathematical properties are in fact describing one type of existence or one ultimate reality. Correspondence theory of truth would be an example of that, since it assesses truth based on its correspondence with existence. But how about assessing existence based on its correspondence with truth. Or consider existentialism. It says that existence precedes essence, and it's not very surprising because existence is already at a higher level and it can simply dominate essence. But an unbalanced version of this model would compare higher levels of ontology with lower levels of epistemology to somehow conclude that ontology is more real or more important than epistemology. People with this unbalanced version of this mind would suggest that epistemology is just a method or just a way to approach ontology, and ontology is the reality out there. No, reality is neutral to both ontology and epistemology. It has two equal aspects of existence and truth. So, for example, consider Kant's objection to the ontological argument that existence is not a predicate. Well, how can we respond to that? Existence is not supposed to be a predicate. In predicate is a lower level of epistemology, and the right counterpart for existence in epistemology is truth, not predicate. Predicate is already at a lower level in the epistemological realm and cannot dominate existence. So Kant's objection is nothing very surprising. It compares a lower level of epistemology, which is predicate, with a higher level of ontology, which is existence. The right counterpart for existence, as we have repeatedly mentioned, is truth, not predicate. So the fifth model for the fundamental nature of reality is the balanced model, in which existence and truth are one. In other words, ontology and epistemology are one at the highest level. Theories like monotheism and Neoplatonism consider this model. So in this model, there is monism at its top, dualism at its bottom. Ontology is considered on its left side, and epistemology is considered on its right side. In other words, it has an equal consideration of both ontology and epistemology, monism and dualism. An argument for this unity would be existence is true, truth is existent, therefore existence and truth are one. So this simply means that although ontology and epistemology are separate at the level of their particulars or negative things, but they are ultimately united at the perfect level of their positive things like truth and existence. So it starts from oneness at its top. One can be the number of God, then two can be the number of opposites in the world, then 3 can be the number of balance, which is made of 2 opposites plus a medium, and 4 can be the number of 4 causes of Aristotle, and so on. So this model has many positive implications for the ontological or the a priori arguments for God. Since ontological or a priori arguments can be used equally in both the ontological and the epistemological realm, it means it refers to a fundamental unity between epistemology and ontology. In other words, as we go higher vertically in one side, we get horizontally closer to the other side. So for example, if we go high in epistemology, we will get horizontally closer to the ontology. For example, Anselm's ontological argument starts by a perfection in mind. It goes up in mind, which forces Anselm to accept a perfection in the existence or ontological realm too. That is because of this horizontal unity at higher levels. So an argument for this would be, as we transcend to higher existential levels, the unity between epistemology and ontology becomes stronger. They entail each other. Premise 2. The movement from meaning of God to the truth of a statement about his nature, like being omnipotent, is the highest epistemological movement, occupies all of our mind. That must be accompanied by its ontological counterpart. It is unavoidable due to the unity. Premise 3. The ontological counterpart for a movement from meaning to truth is a movement from possibility to existence. So if it is possible that there is an omnipotent God, then it is necessary or existence that there is an omnipotent God.